once the recording is started.
Yes, started.
Okay, fine. So yeah, as this agenda was already circulated, I won't be spending too much of time here. But yes, I will try to be as practical as possible, as informative as possible, and try to share those information which is not easily available outside, as I explained earlier. So yes, we'll start with some tips on career growth, progress. Then obviously we are closely associated with MuleSoft ecosystem. Then we'll understand what are MuleSoft play in enterprise architecture. I am sure that you would be knowing better than me because obviously you are associated with this technology for long. But again, I will try to give you some big picture of what we currently envisage. Then how a project is born for experienced friends. They might be knowing all these things. It will be a refresher for them. But for the so for someone who is starting their career, who has just started their career, it is very important to have a big picture of what's going around in corporates. Let's we will discuss on types of different projects that we see in corporates. I have planned to cover what is agile, not in deep because obviously this, as we might understand, this can't be covered in 1 hour or 2 hours. So this will take extensive 4 5 sessions if you want to run deep. But obviously I will cover enough so that we have enough knowledge on what is agile and how it is achieved. Then we will deep dive in the agile framework. We'll see what a hybrid implementation is, how does organizations are customizing agile for their needs. The last part, so first we'll talk about corporate, second we'll take a break, and then we'll talk about agile implementation and all. And the last part, I have created a couple of slides on career tracks. What are the career tracks that is ongoing in the market, where we can focus, where we can take maximum advantage and elevate our position. So I think if I have to ask, if I was a participant, that slide would be most important slide for me because it will give you a clear picture of all the tracks that we can pursue in one slide in one go, and we can take any questions or any doubts after that. So finally, we will have a session wrap up, doubt clarification, discussion, and so on and so forth. Okay. Just to briefly introduce, I am Sushrit Anand. I have 8 plus 8.5 years of experience in corporate world. I have played role in multiple I have played I have worn multiple hats. I have been associated with multiple domains. So I have included a journey of myself at the last, so you would understand a person who joined in a legacy technology and who was stuck at some point of career as how evolved from there. Okay, so I have been doing day by day. I have learned a lot of things. I have learned a lot of skills. I just want to explain that if you are stuck somewhere, how to get out of there. And then finally we will talk about the tracks. So let's move forward without much ado. Some housekeeping rules. What Ravi was, mentioning here. Please keep your mic muted to avoid any disturbance because we have 60, 70 participants, and it might create a nuisance. Obviously, if you have any question, you can put on chat. We will take the questions at appropriate time. If someone is speaking, please don't interrupt. We will give enough opportunity for you to talk as well. And yeah, finally, I have tried to create a content uh, that will give some value addition to every participant. So just sit and relax, enjoy the session. Let it be a very informal session. Do not think as of a training or uh, any study session. Just understand the intent. The intent of session is to trigger thoughts in your mind. The intent of session is not to dump data or dump knowledge in your mind. It is just to trigger thoughts like what are there are plethora of opportunity that is present in the corporates, and nowhere you can see those things covered at one place. So I just want to trigger thought. Okay, this was also possible. Okay, I can do this also. Okay, this also looks nice. So the idea of session is to cover those aspects. Fine. So let me start. So let's start with triggering some some thoughts here. Okay. Uh, we are currently associated with MuleSoft. I understand that. Market is in boom. Everyone is telling that IT sector is growing day by day. Obviously, we are in a pandemic where some of the sectors are being severely hit also. Like if you talk about aviation sector, it was down. If you talk about hospitality sector, it was down very much. Then travel tourism sector. But fortunately we are associated with, and I am guessing we are associated with IT industry, or we want to start our career in IT industry. So this is where the advantage come into play. But even in IT industry, you see there are some people who have lost the job. Okay, and there are some people who are doing exponentially well. So what are the things that people who are doing exponentially well are doing, and what are the things that the people who lost the job has done? So we will touch upon all these aspects subtly in the coming slides. So okay, let me start with these questions. We have entered the MuleSoft ecosystem. Then what next? How will we, elevate our position? Because obviously entering into one ecosystem, and by the way, just to clarify, the first session would be a lot of gyans. I would be talking too much without any, many interactions. Just want to, trigger your thoughts. So just bear with me. There won't be, but I will be talking too much so that you understand and you just grasp what I'm trying to tell. Yeah. So we have entered the ecosystem, or we are about to enter the MuleSoft ecosystem. But what next? Do we want to be there for next 4 5 years? I have seen a lot of people who are stuck there for 4 5 years, and after 5 years, they will wake up from the sleep and they will tell, "Boss, my peers are doing so good. They are getting so much paid, but I'm stuck at this point of time." So this is a very common scenario. Even in IT industry, if you go to giants like Accentures or TCSs of the world, I hope you know the company name Accenture or TCS. They are the big giants of IT industry. There are lot of people who are stuck there. Many of my friends who started the career at the same point when I started in 2012 or 2011. Okay, they were stuck 2 3 years till 2 3 years back. Suddenly they realized, okay, they are not getting enough paid. They are not getting enough good roles. So we should avoid those things. Okay, so that's one thing. Now the $1 million question that would be coming to your mind, there might be hundreds or probably thousands of candidates or your peers that would be competing against you. So how to outperform them? How to make sure that if you are taking interview, then interviewer is selecting you and not them. Or if you are into a corporate setup already, then manager is choosing you for a particular role and not our competitors. Okay. So many of time you might have seen, if you are associated with the corporate industry already, that this industry is not black and white. I mean, there are added responsibilities. Like if you are a developer, doesn't mean that you are going to code all the day and all the days, all the nights, and all the days of the week. So there will be some added responsibilities. Somewhere or other, they will ask you to create design documents. That is responsibility of an architect. Okay, sometimes you might be asked to do some testing. That is responsibility of a tester. So those overlapping skills and overlapping roles is a reality in every industry. I mean, you can't call yourself as a pure play project manager, pure play business analyst, pure play pre-sales consultant, pure play architect, pure play developer. You have to contribute somehow or other to other departments also. Okay, so what happens if you don't contribute? what happens, let's say we are adamant and we tell our manager, I am a developer, I won't be doing anything that is not in the role or responsibility list of developer. So they won't tell you anything. To go, you'll suffer, because the problem is like most of the times there won't be many opportunity where you can showcase your talent. Okay, there would be one or two opportunities, and that's where you need to grab those. So what I mean by this, you will understand probably by the time we reach the end of the session. But just keep this thought in your mind, is like in corporate setup there is no black and white. There is no one role and you will end up doing that thing only. There is always a skill overlap. Okay. So the question I asked, like how do we outperform our competitors? So the suitable answer, or one of the possible answer what I can think of, is like keeping ourselves industry ready. Now what does I mean by this? We should be actually in a real sense be street smart and proactive. Okay, we should actually anticipate what is going to come, and we should be prepared for that, rather than panicking at the point when everything seems undoable. So we should be we should be gazing that well in advance and start doing that right from the beginning. Actually, in current IT industry setup, all that matters is our versatility. Okay, by versatility I mean, as I was explaining a minute before, let's say, can we as a developer take additional responsibility to lead a team? Can we create a design document, as I mentioned, which an architect can do? Our role still can be a developer, but can we support an architect? If architect is on leave, or if architect has resigned, can we still make sure that the project is not being impacted? Can we get into a requirement gathering session workshop and understand customer requirements? So there is a famous, famous use case. If you are good enough, right? So these, I'm talking more about this IT industry, because that's where major chunk of us will go and major chunk of us will work. These things are equally true for a product-based industry as well. By the way, for people who are new and might not understand difference between product-based industry and generic IT industry, for a product-based industry, there will be a limited team, and the size of the company would be less, maybe 1,000 or 10,000 or 20,000, because they would be developing a product and they would be marketing and selling that product. Okay, so that those industries are called product-based industries, and IT industry will have multiple domains, multiple projects, and they are the vendors to all those product-based industries, and they would be helping in implementation. So that's where IT industry comes into picture. Okay. So coming to what I was talking, so can we go into a requirement gathering workshop and understand the customer requirement clearly? So this is a classical use case where we can showcase our talent. Actually, the more we interact with the customer, the better we will go, and more you have reputation with the customer, it is more difficult for manager or company to not consider your demands. So if you have a dependency over the customer, if some customer tells that I like this particular candidate in implementation, I and if you have done a really nice job, let's say in requirement gathering, okay, so there is high chances that in appraisal cycle, in position, in in getting new roles, you will be the preferred candidate, and this is a reality, because it's not a government job, right? It's not like after 4 years we will be we will move to some other position, then after 2 years we'll move to some other position, some higher position, and this will keep on happening. Like if someone is assistant engineer today, he will be executive engineer or superintendent engineer in for sure. That doesn't happen here. Here you have to showcase that you are worth, and once you showcase that, you can actually rule that. You are very valued. That's what I wanted to tell you. Uh, then the next thing what we can do here is like our additional skill set, apart from the core skill set that we acquire, actually gives us edge over the others. So what does this mean? So this means if we have this extra skills, probably we will be the preferred choice for our leadership team. And as I mentioned a couple of minutes before, so that will be a trick to quickly rise in the corporate, and that's where you can bargain also. I mean, if they have given you 5% hike, you can bargain. If you're not giving 15% hike, then I will leave the company. So that bargaining power will come only if you have a worth, and worth will come only if you are a multi-dimensional, multi-skilled. So a multi-skilled resources will always remain in demand and always find opportunities to grow. So once your manager or your leadership team identify that this guy is capable enough, okay, so for any next opportunity, no one wants to ruin that opportunity, so they will choose you every time. So that's the best aspect of this. Every new opportunity you will be involved in, and you will have multi avenue to grow. And once you're multi avenue to grow, your worth in the market will also rise. Not only that, company, your CV will become, there will be a position yourself as a superior, even if you are not that experienced. I have seen people of 4+ or 3+ years of experience projecting themselves a tech lead and getting a very good CTC in the market. That is only possible if you have actually done something like tech lead. And how will you do something like tech lead? By showcasing that you have knowledge of a tech lead, and you do it with a development role. So that's how we grow. Uh, One of the other roles why multi-skilled people is preferred in the corporates. Again, I am repeating that will be a monologue for some time. I understand, but these things are of paramount importance to make you understand, because that's what really happens in corporates, and that's nowhere documented. I don't think anywhere, any sites, any videos, you will find all this information. So that's where I have just compiled it for you. Just bear with me. Yeah. So coming on, why a multi? What do you think a multi-skilled person is preferred? The if you go to any organization, the first thing they will be worried about you, like getting yourself built. Are you a bench? Are you built? Are you in some pool, or are you built? Okay, so if a person is multi-skilled, right, it is very easy to get billing for that particular resource, because obviously they will project will like we have a excellent resource because which has a core skill set, and he can do x and number of things other than the core skills. And customers also wants that, because for two skills he had one resource who can perform that, rather than having two resources. So there is a cost cutting play also that comes into picture. Okay, and the next thing is, like, if you already know something, it takes a less time to upskill yourself. So if you have a developer skill set, and you understand about, let's say, tech lead, or maybe business analyst or project management, then you already have an advantage over others. So this slide with a simple takeaway is like, one of the biggest thing is like that the smartness, or the proficiency that I'm talking here, will never come overnight. It won't be like one fine morning you will wake up and you will think like, okay, I'm overpowered. That doesn't happen. It is all about the little things that we do daily, which keep adding to our knowledge. And trust me, I have been through all these things. Every single second of effort that we invest at the start of our career, or maybe whatever point of our career, will pay unlimited dividends in coming years. So that's actually true, and I have experienced that. Okay. So whatever you do will pay you. Nothing will go waste in coming years. So a lot of monologue here. So let me just keep moving forward. Any questions here? You can put in your chat. Maybe at the end of this particular session, we will spend some time, there. Okay. So the next big thing is we talked about there are a lot of opportunities in the corporate. There are a lot of roles that we can target. There are a lot of things we actually can do. We should not get ourselves stuck at a particular role. That is good. But the point is how to keep moving forward. I mean, what to target. Okay, one of the key issues everyone or most of us faces at some point of career is like we feel stuck. It happens to it happened to me. I am sure out of 70, 75 odd participants that we have here, it might have happened to at least 50, 60% of us. We are not happy with our job or our role, and we want to change that. So what the key issue is like we feel stuck at some point of time. Okay. uh, so actually most of the successful not terms of Apple, Steve Jobs, or Microsoft, Bill Gates. When I talk about successful, I'm talking about someone like us who has started our career with us, and they are doing really good, or who have started their career recently in 2 years, 3 years back, and they are doing really good. So by successful, I mean that. So most of the successful person that I have known in my colleagues, friend circles, and friends of friends is like they have at least a core area where they are really good, which is their obviously bread and butter, for livelihood. Okay, and they really build on the top of that. Okay, so how do they build? There are actually a lot of roles and career that you can target. Okay, and at the start of it, it looks like very difficult, but they are not necessarily difficult. Obviously, if we have a right understanding of how to pursue and right understanding of where we will land if we acquire that skill set. A lot of times we just flow. What do I say? Flow in the river that we just join what everyone is doing, but that thing might not necessarily be good for us. Okay, I'm not telling that that is bad only, but we should be cognizant of what we are going to get at the end of that. Um, I have seen in my 8 plus or 8.5 plus years of experience, a lot of people doesn't have actual clarity of where we want to see ourselves in next 5 to 10 years. You remember that famous question that you as a fresher, or if we change our jobs, where do you see yourself in 5, 10 years? And believe me, that was the toughest question for me to answer because, or I say the toughest question to answer because a lot of time we don't have clarity. We just dodge that question by telling, and I am sure that most of us would be doing, I want to see at a position that is rewarding, where we are contributing for our organization, for ourselves, and there is a mutual growth, mutual respect, blah, blah. But do we really know what position are we targeting? No. The point is, we don't have clarity. So that's where we start, struggling. We should have a, clear cut clarity of what we are going to do. There are a lot of, good positions, good roles, good technology in the market. Okay. But how you are going to curate your career around that so that it is very rewarding, that you should, start considering now itself. Okay. The point is, we can't get complacent at particular role. We have to keep thinking forward. We have to keep moving forward. Okay. First of all, we need to start thinking with what technology. Let me talk about technology first. Then we'll talk about role. So, what technology will stay in the market for 5, 10 years? Obviously, if we are part of a technology that is going to deplete in next 2, 3 years, then obviously we are creating a problem for us. So by selecting MuleSoft, we have ensured that at least this technology will be there for next 10 years or 15 years. I have a separate slide, next slide, where I will cover why I am telling MuleSoft is here to stay. But yeah, you just note this, that MuleSoft is going to stay for now. Then the next question that you should always ask, you should daily ask daily from yourself, how will I rise to next position? what is my lead doing that I am not doing? What is lead doing that I am not doing? Okay, if you keep on targeting those positions, and it becomes very easy for you to grow there. Or else what will happen? We will be happy with our position, whatever we are doing, and we will think that we are giving our 120% in the job, and we will get stuck at the same position after 4 or 5 years. Okay, so and one of the things that you might be knowing and that we already know is like ultimately we are paid for the position we belong to in the organization. The upper management folks and managers in most cases always get paid more than their reportees, isn't it? So so that's one of the things I wanted to tell. Just keep thinking. Do not sit complacent. We should just keep thinking what next, and we will actually land up to a better rewarding position. Then the left side of this screen, if you see, I have mentioned a lot of roles like product owner, developer, business analyst, scrum master, project manager, architect. Might not have clarity for mostly for freshers, or for someone who has started our journey. For experienced friends, we would be knowing all these things. Sorry, yeah. So for experienced friends, we would be knowing all these things. But again, we should think what are the roles and responsibilities of it's a product owner. If tomorrow I have to become product owner, I should not start thinking of it when the time has already come. We should preempt that. So that's the thought trigger here. So I was talking about MuleSoft, and I was telling that MuleSoft is going to stay in the market for next 10 years at least. Why I was telling that? So I am sure, pretty much sure that every one of us who is present here would be knowing MuleSoft is a product suite that is offered by Salesforce. Actually, MuleSoft is one of the product that Salesforce offers. What is Salesforce? Salesforce is number one CRM system, and Salesforce is gradually taking over the market at a reckless speed. I would say, at a reckless speed. It is, out edging all the competitors like Oracle, Microsoft, and it is a serious threat to all the competitors. And we are fortunate that we are associated with either Salesforce industry or MuleSoft industry, and we will grow from here. We have enough opportunity to grow from here. So I mentioned the Salesforce is number one CRM system. Why? Because Salesforce offers multiple products that you see in the screen, at least one product for each business area. So what Salesforce is a very straightforward philosophy. Okay, so what it sees, a organization, it sees a business area and just thinks whether I have any product to offer in that business area or not. Okay, so let's say the area called analytics. Okay, where Salesforce didn't have any product, and we had a well settled product in the market like Power BI. We have other visualization product. What Salesforce did they acquired Tableau. Now Salesforce is filling the white space that was present in the analytics market. So similarly, by developing or by acquiring, what Salesforce has done eventually has created an ecosystem where business can come to Salesforce for all their needs. Like for sales, what their sales need, Salesforce has Sales Cloud. For their after sales support customer need, they have Service Cloud. For marketing activities, they have Marketing Cloud. For e-commerce activities, they have B2B and B2C Commerce Cloud. Okay. For analytics, it has acquired Tableau. For integration, obviously, we know it offers MuleSoft. For AI, likewise, we have Einstein and so on and so forth. As you can see on the screen, I just read out that. But yeah, it is very important to know that we are a part of ecosystem that has a lot of offerings. Okay, and now since Salesforce help us find, help in the future in solving so many use case for the customer through its product offering, one thing with surety that every one of us can think is like it is going to stay in the market. No one can, no one can create a product suite of this this magnitude in couple of years or so. If a new Salesforce needs to born, it will take at least another 10-15 years. Not before that, we are going to see another Salesforce. By the way, Salesforce was started in 1997 or so, and it has taken 20 years to capture the market. So at least for next 15-20 years, our job is safe if you are a part of the ecosystem. You're part of MuleSoft, you're part of Salesforce, and so on and so forth. And if you see, since MuleSoft is a part of Salesforce, MuleSoft is also going to stay here for long. So net, we can safely assume that MuleSoft plus Salesforce is going to transform the landscape of many corporates, many companies, many sectors, many verticals in coming years, and that's a reality. Okay, that's where if you see the web talks of Oracle head or Microsoft head, okay, they are little worried about Salesforce growing at this speed because they are competitors and their share of pie is being eaten by Salesforce. So let's move forward. Let me just spend a couple of minutes in MuleSoft play in enterprise architecture. So what I wanted to show you here is how a typical architecture of enterprise, big enterprise looks like. So when I talk about big enterprise, it may be any product company or any company who is catering to its customer. Let's, for the sake of argument, let's take one company. Let's take Adidas or Nike or company like maybe let's take Adidas. Okay, so I am sure there would be one system that is catering to sales and relationship. Okay, so that is here. Let me just point this. They will have one sales and customer relationship system, then they will have marketing system, then they might have order management system, they might have business intelligence system, so on and so forth. So these are some of the systems that they will essentially have. Okay. Now, if you see, MuleSoft sits at the heart of all the system. So the biggest problem that a corporate, because I have been, again, I will be telling you my profile in detail in coming in the last slide, and you will understand why I was able to talk like this. But you just understand, I have gone through a lot of requirements and lot of proposals, and I have seen one of the problem that corporate faces currently is like their systems are working in silos. What does this mean? So when I tell their systems are working in silos, some of the systems in their ecosystem won't be, exchanging data to other system. So now what will happen? So every time we need, some kind of intelligence or some kind of, automation mechanism, the data itself is not available. So MuleSoft is here to solve all those data silos problems. So if you see, all the systems can be integrated to all other systems, and that's where MuleSoft come handy. Okay, so for most of the corporate, there will be one ESB or one integration layer, and since MuleSoft is more powerful, has more capability, so it is going to be a preferred integration layer for the coming years. That's what at least I envisage. Now the point, I have kept all the logos. If you see, we have Salesforce play as well everywhere. I mean, if you see for sales and service, we have Salesforce icon present here. Like for customer portal, we have Salesforce icon. For Oracle and everything, we have for product config and pricing, we have Salesforce icon. So net, what I wanted to tell you, like it's pretty much evident for anyone who is looking at this slide, is like Salesforce plus MuleSoft play will increase exponentially in coming years. And what I have seen in nowadays, that integration projects are already involving some other Salesforce product. I mean, what will happen? Some proposal or some requirement will come on MuleSoft, and they will have at least one or other footprint of Salesforce in their ecosystem that needs to be integrated. So that's what I understand, and that's what I wanted to share also. Like Salesforce and MuleSoft play will be rising in coming years. So we talk about, I was mentioning some of the terms like RFP, requirements, proposal. So let's talk about project lifecycle in detail. Okay, what is a project? Uh, okay, so if once we enter a corporate world, okay, if we are experienced, again, if you are experienced, we would be knowing about this project. It will be just a refresher for them. But one for all of us who are new to the corporate world, so once we enter the corporate world, one thing is that the corporates will want you to get in a build position. Okay, that's one thing. And there are great chances that you will be working for a project. But most of the times, what we understand, we don't understand the intricacies of a project or accounts that we are associated with. We just use this term, loosely. We just tell them, okay, I am working on so and so project. I am working on JP Morgan project. I am working on you know um, some Honda project or Hyundai project. Okay, but what is that project? How was it born? It is very essential to understand that life cycle, because if see what I am trying to tell you with this session is just open your just to give you perspective what are different subtle things that that is done in the corporate. Okay, and you should actually know nothing is irrelevant to anyone if it is being done in in any industry or in the corporate. We are here to learn that. I mean, it will always be beneficial if we know how these things happen. So let's start with this. I have captured end-to-end journey of how a project is born. So let me just explain this. It will start making more sense. Let us suppose there is a company A, okay, and they decide to transform their business process. Now, what does this mean? Okay, so this is another jargon that is being thrown. Jargon is like a word that is specific to that industry. So this is another industry jargon that is being thrown at every one of us. People, you will actually once you start working on project, there are a few things that you will start hearing every day. CSAT, customer satisfaction, transformation process, business process. So all these things you will start listening all these things. Okay, we should understand the real essence of that. When someone talks about transforming business process, what is actually they are talking about. So if we understand these things, right, then it will be easier for us to get the big picture. So there is a company who wants to transform business process. So let's suppose the company A sells furnitures. Okay, let's suppose it sells furnitures, and it transforms its case management process. So now let's suppose that in current scenario, what happens, like they sell a furniture to an end customer, and if end customer is not happy with the product or they have any issues, some nut bolts or anything is missing, they want to get in touch with the customer center, customer help desk. Okay, but now currently, since company is not a big organization, they have not invested heavily on the call center or customer support center. So now the only option is customer can send an email to company. Company will see the email, and they will send some executive to fix that, and it will get fixed. Okay, so for the sake of argument, let's understand this is the customer service process that is currently prevailing in the company. And this is a reality. I mean, you don't think this as a hypothetical example. There are many companies for cost cutting who is running on this thing, and they want to transform. So this process of raising a case and getting that fulfilled is known as business process. So similarly, as you guess, there might be several business process in organization. So case management is one of the business process. Okay, order management might be another business process. Order fulfillment might be another business process. Shipping management might be one business process. The billing management might be one business process. Order to cash might be one business process. So similarly, a company will have several business process. So there are high chances that some of their business processes are being run on the legacy system. Okay, that they want to transform. So that's where this comes from. So if you see this the business process that we currently, this I told you just now, the case management process where a customer will send an email to a customer support department. They will see the email and they will, just reply to that. Is a customer support business process. So let's say they want to transform it to next gen, where they want to include a call center, where people who calls them, and a case can automatically be created, an agent can automatically be assigned, and so on and so forth. So let's say they want a business process. Now what happens? Like I told you, there might be one business process or many business process. Okay, and there will be many departments. And all departments will be telling that in this financial year, okay, I want to change my business process because there is a lot of customer issue. There is a lot of doing business. Ease of doing business is not there. Okay, but company will have limited budget, right? Company can't spend money in changing business process. They will see and they will prioritize the business process. So the next step would be identify business priority. What are the business process that I need to target for this financial year? Okay. Then comes budget and duration approval. What will happen? There will be one business sponsor. Again, business sponsor is a jargon in corporate world. You can understand business sponsor is a person in corporate who has the money to spend, who got this money from the management, some amount, and who has a purse who can spend on 10 different things, whatever is in portfolio. Again, portfolio means whatever systems or whatever verticals they are looking for. Okay, so let's say they have a purse, they have X amount of money. So there will be budget approval. Let's say for this case management process, I will spend only this amount of thing. Okay, and I want this to be ready in next 3 months. So that target and budget approval will come into picture. So one, based on the budget and based on the target, the scope will finalize. So scope, what we will tell. Let's say in the first iteration, you know let's focus on the all the important items. Let's focus on the getting the call center set up where a call comes and automatically case is assigned, automatically some response is sent to customer like thank you for calling, we will get your case solved and all. Let's not include the chat feature. Let's not include the chat feature. Let it be for a future development. So some scope will be finalized here. By the way, I'm audible, right? Because I've been talking so long. Ravi, can you confirm I'm audible?
Yes, yes, everything good.
Okay, fine. Okay, so the scope will be finalized. Then the next important thing, actually the very important thing here, the corporate will see whether they have an internal fulfillment capability or not. Okay, so they will see whether I have an IT team that can do this, business transformation that we talked about or not. Let's say I am a CEO of Honda. Okay, Honda company. Obviously, Honda is an automobile company. Why do they have any IT department? Why will they do any software development on? So companies like Honda, what will happen? They might not have an IT team set up. But for some companies like Dell, okay, so Dell is also a product organization which might have some business process transformation requirement and all. They might have an IT leg also where they can get the job done. So if they have some IT leg where some internal fulfillment is possible, they will directly capture the requirement and start implementing that. If they don't have, if they are from a sector, they are not related to IT, like energy and utility, like Shell. We have petrol company like Bharat Petroleum, and so on and so forth. Okay, so they might not essentially have an IT department. So what they will do, they will bundle all the requirements in a preferably in a Word document, and they will call it as a request for proposal. Now, what is request for proposal? So normally, what happens is like I would request everyone to give more attention here, because from here to till last leg of the diagram, it's little difficult for someone who is hearing for the first time, and they might get confused. So I will be very slow here. My idea is that everyone should understand what I am talking. Okay, or else purpose will be defeated. So the first thing that will come into picture is request for proposal. You might have heard might have heard RFP documents. Okay, some RFP, RFQ, RFI. These documents have been circulated, and we have received as a as a vendors, and we have to respond to that. Might have heard, might not have heard. So if you have not heard, so that RFP document will essentially contains all the requirements that the company A in this case wants to get implemented. Okay, and what it will do, it will send this document to all the vendors or the partners as they call, which they think is capable of doing that. Okay, who are the partners in the real world? Like who will be the partner in, who will be partnering with Honda? So companies like Accenture, TCS, Wipro, Cognizant, all these companies would be the partners to all these, all these um, original companies like Honda and all. So they call them as a system integrator. So SI partners, SI partners, you would be listening in your organization. Okay, so let us suppose one of the companies like maybe Wipro, okay, companies like Wipro or any other IT company gets this RFP. Then what is the next step? The next step would be the sales team and the pre-sales team. Okay, so sales team is the person who will be client facing. Okay, and there will be a team who would be supporting that sales team. Okay, so both the team will start giving drafting response to the RFP. Okay, so typically RFP response will contain the first and foremost would be like we understand your requirement, what do you want to achieve. Okay, then it will be like here is how we think the solution. Here are a couple of options. Option one, we will be doing so and so things. Option two, we will be doing so and so things, and you can choose based on your budget, your timeline, your flexibility, and all. Then third thing of that RFP response would be a timeline where we would say that option will one will take 9 months to get implemented. Option two will probably be more aggressive and get 6 months to be implemented. Then we will give them a project structure that we are going to staff 5 people. One lead will be there, one business analyst will be there, two developers will be there, one tester will be there, one integration architect will be there, one integration developer will be there, and so on and so forth. So we will tell them the team structure. Then we will tell them how we are going to run the program. Okay, what will happen weekly, what will happen monthly, who will talk to them. Then we will tell them what is the expected participation from you, like your business, in what phase of project. Okay. Then finally we will present this is for doing these activities. This is the charge. Okay, this is the this is the code that we would like to tell. We might include this you know uh, what else? We might include risk and any mitigation that we foresee. And finally, some of the relevant experience or the case studies, as we call in industry jargons, that we have done the similar things for similar company and they are getting benefit of it. Okay. So this proposal that SI partner drafts, okay, that is sent to the customer. Customer fix a date for demonstration, and the SI partner demonstrate the proposal. Customer tells everything is okay, but your cost is no. Then there will be further negotiation, so on and so forth. I mean, they will talk to all the vendors who have sent their proposals, and they will see your proposal is good, but the solution is not good. Your solution is good, but the approach is not good. Your solution and approach is good for some other, for some other vendors. Your approach and solution is good, but your price is very high. Your everything is good, but you have staffed more people, and so on and so forth. They will get into discussion, and finally, after and this is reality in every proposal, right? It's not like any proposal will go through without bargaining and without getting the best price and all. So this is reality. This happens in every proposal. So finally all these things, it is just like buying an item from a shop. How we do, we go there. If it's not a fixed price shop, we go there, we ask the customer, the shopkeeper for a best price, he tells, no, I can give only this. Then we ask for bundle price. No, I can't give this. So on and so forth. They will ask for value addition. They will ask what else you are bringing. And so on. And finally, they will select one vendor based on all the options. They will select one vendor and tell that, okay, we have shortlisted you. Yeah, we are happy to onboard you. Let's get the process started. The first document after the company selects the vendor is SOW document. Now, what is this? SOW, the full form of SOW is statement of work. So essentially, this is a contractual document so that either party doesn't run away after committing. Okay, once they commit, they are bind under legal. Uh, sorry, sorry. They are bound under legal rules and regulation that they have to fulfill that. Extremely sorry. So yeah, and this document will essentially contain the scope of the implementation. Okay, this is what we are going to implement. Might contain team structure or any relevant information about that. So once this contract document is signed, that's when the project is on. Okay, now this project will be entered into the internal system of an IT department who has agreed to fulfill the demands. Okay, they will create a project in their system. They will mobilize resource. They will identify resource from the pool, like who will be the person who will be participating this. The resource might get interview with the customer, and once everything is shortlisted, a project will be created in the system of this of vendor. Now, from here to here, right? If you see from here to here, this cycle is pre-sale cycle. Okay. So from RFP, after RFP has been flowed, from here to here, essentially sales and pre-sales fulfills that. There are lots and lots of things that is done here. This may be, I would call only 10% of the activity that I have called out just for your um, for your knowledge, but they are more than this what happens. But essentially this leg of project, how a project is born, is the pre-sales leg. Now we move to the implementation leg. So you understand, once a project has been created, okay, so we need to implement that. Okay, so the first thing is discovery and design. What happens in a discovery and design? So we are vendors, right? We will be working for Accenture or TCSs of the world. Okay, we are not associated with the client. We don't know their landscape. We don't know what system is implemented, what system is not implemented. Okay, so the first thing is to connect with them and understand their technology landscape, understand their integration touch points, understand edge systems that is there in the their landscape, identify to be system or map to be system, identify data that needs to be migrated. Okay, identify any risk dependencies, create finalize requirement document and get it signed from the customer before starting the implementation. So customer will give a walkthrough of their current system and make them understand, okay, these are the systems, this is the as is business process, you need to change this. So first 2-3 weeks that we keep for discovery is just to get ourselves familiarized with their ecosystem, so that we understand what are the current pain areas there, what we can do, what we can't do, what are other things we can do in their system as a value addition. So all those things will happen. So importantly, the deliverables of this this phase essentially would be a detailed project plan, technical plan, risk and mitigation plan. As I mentioned, business requirement that will be finalized with the customer and will be signed up so that we don't do any deviation afterward. Customer should not come and tell, oh, boss, I told you 100 things to do, you are doing only 50 things. So in that, uh, at that point of time, we have some proof that you have signed these user stories or these business requirement, and we are as per the requirement that you have mentioned. Then we might have fit gap analysis document. Then we need to create a test strategy. We need to create a learning plan. So, training plan and so on and so forth. So everything will happen in discovery session. And a design session, if it is a part of discovery session, we will create a technical design of the requirements. Once we have the requirement, we'll create an overall enterprise design, high level design, low level design. Then we have a functional document that you might have seen during your training that needs to be created here. Okay, so all these documents needs to be signed up by the customer before starting the implementation. Once we enter into the implementation phase, so this implementation is mostly done in agile nowadays. We have a popular notion that waterfall is bad. I would say it's not like that. Waterfall is not bad. I can mention at least 4 5 giant companies that is still using waterfall. Okay, it all depends on the process to process. If you have a well settled process, then waterfall is the best approach. If you have a you know if you have well settled requirement at the front at the starting, then waterfall is the best approach. But if you have ever changing requirements, then agile is the best approach. Why people are favoring agile is because nowadays everyone has a changing requirement kind of scenario. So that's where they are telling the agile is better than waterfall, agile is better than waterfall. I would say you should have a fair understanding of both the things, agile as well as waterfall, because in most of the organization, right, as I mentioned in RT organization, there will be a mix of agile and waterfall, and that we call a hybrid approach. By hybrid approach, what I mean is like the initiation or the design phase, discovery design phase will be in waterfall. The implementation leg will always be in agile. Again, there will be a user acceptance testing, then SIT, then go live, then hypercare, and everything will be in waterfall. Okay, so these things are highly customizable. I have seen companies where they use pure agile. There is no waterfall as such. They create they finalize the requirement. They come here. They finalize the requirement. They create user story and they start implementation in agile, and they deliver that. They ship the product. Okay, I have seen companies where they use pure waterfall, and I have worked with one of the companies also where they will finalize the requirement. They will go to a discovery session. They will create a BRD. They will create a functional design. They will create low level design, high level design. Then once everything is finalized, then they will go for implementation. They will implement the product. Once every implementation is done, they will go for um, unit testing. Once unit testing is done, then they will go for QA, quality assurance. When that is done, they will go for system integration testing and so on and so forth. Then that will be released, then warranty and so on and so forth. Okay, so my only request to all of us would be, we should not close our eyes, keep our eyes closed from waterfall approach. Okay, it is necessary to understand what happens in waterfall also, because there are high chances if you understand waterfall, we will understand agile better. Okay. Now moving on, we have a UAT that I was mentioning. In UAT phase, what will happen is customer will test the product that we have given to him. We'll say the product is as expected, is running as we wanted. Okay. Then we have production go live, where we will launch the product, and after launching the product, we will have a warranty support where we will tell the customer that we will solve all the issues and the tickets that would be coming after the go live for free. And once that phase is done, we just give this project to customer, and if they want, they can keep us for further solving of tickets or any issue that might be raising, or they might want to give this to other vendors. So normally what will happen, in most of the cases, the customer will do the implementation from one implementation partner, and they will change the partner, and they will bring another partner for maintenance and support, just for a uh, cost cutting perspective. Okay, so this is end-to-end project flow. We have a lot of content to cover, but I didn't want to rush this slide, because obviously this was the most important slide that would give you a fair understanding of competition. There are lots and lots of other things that happens. I can spend 30 minutes on this only, on this leg. I can spend 30 minutes on this leg, how this is happen. how this happens. I can very well spend half an hour, 1 hour on each and every item that is mentioned here. Just to give you a overall big picture. I'm just covering this. Let's quickly move on to yeah. This is the agile project implementation that I have mentioned, and this leg is called pre-sales leg, and both of them are very exciting. I mean, development cycle, as you might know, because you are associated as a developer, is exciting, but the pre-sales is another exciting area, and you will enjoy your stint in pre-sales as well, and it's also very rewarding. Okay, so let's move on. We understood how a project is born in the last slide. Let's quickly touch upon what are the types of project. Okay, so predominantly there are four types of project. I would say three types, and the last two support and enhancements are clubbed mostly. Okay, uh, so first one is consulting. So in consulting exercise, what happens? We just visit any customer, we see their current pain areas, what they are suffering from, and we create a roadmap to alleviate those pain areas. We just create a technology roadmap or business roadmap and tell them this is what you should do going forward. Or if we understand that customer is seriously missing on something and their competitors are applying those thoughts and getting to a new height, then we suggest those things to the customer. So that is a pure play consulting. Always, often these consulting exercise are given to consulting giants like if you have heard of the company like McKinsey, if you have heard of a company like Bain or maybe Accenture, Deloitte, all these are consulting giants. But there, most of the times, their job is just to do a consulting exercise and give them a roadmap. So that will end there. Okay. Now, once that they might give user stories or the requirement what you need to do also. So once that consulting exercise is over, then the company what they do, they go to another implementation partners. So obviously for this consultant, since they are big brands, their implementation fee will be very high. Okay, so to cut the cost, most of the time what I have seen, the consulting will be done by some other partner, and the implementation, as I explained earlier, the implementation cycle will be done by some other partner. Okay. Once the implementation has been done, the product has been, shipped to the customer, then we have a support and enhancement. So in support, what will happen after current ticket comes, there should be some team that would be, giving response and solving their issues. So that is the Java support team. An enhancement team, what typically does, if we have any enhancement to the project, then they will take those enhancement and implement that. And what are the enhancement? If you see the last diagram, we discussed here, right? We finalized the scope and we say that let's say chat feature should be implemented afterwards. Okay, so that chat feature will be an enhancement to this project, and that enhancement will go through the same cycle. I mean, the chat requirements will be captured. There will be a team who will be doing discovery, the user stories, everything will be created, and there will be implementation, there will be UAT, production goal, so on and so forth. Fine. So that's how a typical project works. I I understand. I have been talking for more than 1 hour or so, mostly 1 hour 10 minutes or so, and we might need a short break. What I will do, we will meet after maybe 10 minutes. It's 10:27 from my watch. Let's meet around 10:35, and we will quickly see what is agile. I actually want to spend most of the time in the career path. So we have a lot of exciting content that will be coming in subsequent slide. Okay, so yeah, so I will quickly touch upon the agile, and obviously that agile is a vast concept. So I will try to be as informative or as I will try to keep my clarification to a ground level so that everyone can understand. But obviously, we can ask questions afterwards. So I hope we are enjoying this session. I actually I'm just hoping that everyone is little more thoughtful after this session. I am able to put at least some kind of thought in everyone's mind that this is how a corporate runs, this is what happens. So yeah, let's take a some 10 minutes break. Okay. I will be starting the